Well, journalists often get a bad name. Most of the time it's when they get close to the truth, and the truth is a bit, well, as we've been finding out, pretty ugly. Pauli Van Wyk is an investigative journalist who's written in depth about the justice cluster, SOEs and politics. She joins me now to share some of her career highs and lows all the way from Cape Town. Pauli, good to have you with us this morning. In all the work that you do, which is quite amazing and incredibly brave, what have you learned about the relationship between politics, corruption and policing in this country? And I know that's a broad sweep.
Yes, it is. Good morning. Well, in the end, it is all connected. The one cannot exist without the other. And especially in South Africa, political power equals money. And private money gains political power. And that's why there's a symbiosis between private corruption and political and state party corruption.
And we've got that sort of power. How do you ever break it up?
Well, you take it case by case. It depends on what you're working on. I've worked on SOEs, on the NEL, on various other state-owned enterprises, on the VBS implosion. So each case you need to evaluate on its own merits. And in each story, there's a different lesson to learn.
All right. I mean, let's talk about the VBS, for example, and the sort of stunning revelations you found there, some of the links that you've put with the EFF, and yet there seem to be certain politicians, political parties that are untouchable at the moment. What is the fear behind putting people behind bars? What do you see in your work?
The problem is they aren't behind bars. That's the entire problem in South Africa at the moment. We have amazing journalists. We have jurists who know their work. It seems as if we lack the investigative capacity from the police and the hawks. And when they actually do get close, they get murdered, like Lieutenant Colonel Kania that we've just seen. And when journalists get close, we see that they are getting targeted. ENCA's female journalists in terms of the clicks situation, and the EFF is a prime example. When we are trying to do our job, we're targeted. And that is part and parcel of a country where political power and private power is being used to stymie any criticism, and where looting is reigning supreme at the moment.
I should imagine it must be pretty hard not to get down and despondent, even though I'm sure you meet incredible people. What do you think is going to unlock this? I mean, what is your relationship with the NPA, for example? I mean, is there a way out of this morass?
Yes, there is, and it's another multifaceted problem and answer. The first instance, I think South Africans must start to stand up and say, not in my name. We cannot expect to do the same thing and get different results, right? So at the polls, we need to say, I am not standing for this anymore. And then, of course, the investigative capacities of the prosecuting authority and the police and the hawks must be jacked up. If there are consequences for actions, people will start to learn lessons. We've seen that in terms of politics, certain politicians has been moved out of their positions. Mr. Tomoyani is a key example at the start of President Cyril Ramaphosa's career as the president, and several other politicians followed in the meantime. Now, that is something that we need in South Africa, where if you are corrupt or if you have done misdeeds, there must be consequences for your actions.
It is people like you who give us the confidence to speak up and know that it's not just all in your mind, it's not a figment of the imagination. This kind of horror really is playing out. What sort of legal relationship do you need in order to do your job successfully?
Well, journalists have a range of sources, right? So we have auditors and attorneys, other specialists. It again depends on what you're working with, because you might need a procurement specialist, or you might need a medical specialist that you consult with. I think that one of the most important skills that a journalist actually do need is a very well-functioning knowledge of the law, because you cannot identify a problem if you do not know it's a problem. So you have to know, you have to have a very good working knowledge of criminal law and private law, and then obviously corporate law in South Africa to understand what you're seeing and what you're dealing with.
And your relationship with whistleblowers, I should imagine that's pretty important, and we should never forget how important they are and what sort of respect they deserve.
No, absolutely. So sources are key in any journalist's world, and we need to actually protect them better in South Africa. They are targeted all the time, and that's why journalists are finding new and creative ways to keep them safe. We use certain platforms to talk to them, or we don't talk to them at all for months, and we try and get people who feel about South Africa as we do. We try to get people who love South Africa, who wants to let the light shine on the facts, and who wants to do good, to ensure that we get information and so that we can reveal what is happening behind closed curtains. Now, that's easier said than done because people are scared. Rightly so, because we're talking about their pension, their lives, and their families, and their livelihoods, and often their lives. Again, as we see with Dr. Munshi, who was murdered just for a simple operation, and we also see Lieutenant Colonel Kinnear, who was murdered because he was investigating high-profile matters relating to the police. So there are good reasons for people to be scared.
Pauli Van Wyk, so good to speak to you. Thank you for the incredible work that you do and talking us through it. And I look forward to the next expose.